Hi again. Walter Rauschenbusch in Christianity and the Social Crisis, page 269. He has been dealing with gambling as another manifestation of the new law that was abroad in America when Rauschenbusch was a young man. Thou shalt covet. And he's just made the point that thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's trade is not in our Decalogue. The spirit of competition. The same instinct of rapacity cheats the consumer. They sell us fruit jam made without fruit, butter that never saw the milk pail, potted chicken that grunted in the barnyard, all wool goods that never said ba, but leave it to the buyer to say it. If a son asks for bread, his father will not offer him a stone, but ground soapstone is freely advertised as an adulterant for flour. Several years ago, the Secretary of Agriculture, on the basis of an extensive inquiry, estimated that 30% of the money paid for food products in the United States is paid for adulterated or misbranded goods. We're fortunate if the title of the food is false, but the food is wholesome. But when fruit flavors are made with coal tar and benzoic acid, and when the milk for our children is preserved with formaldehyde, the rapacity becomes murderous. The life of a mother or a child may depend on the purity of a medicine administered at the critical stage of a disease, but we have very little guarantee that our medicines are not adulterated. In 1904, the Board of Health in New York City had a list of about 300 druggists and dealers who had attempted to sell spurious mixtures to the very officers of the board. Most of the patent medicines to which our people trust are cheap and worthless concoctions. Others are insidious conveyors of narcotic poisons which are intended to set up a morbid appetite in the consumers for the profit of the dealers. And if patent medicines were as health-giving as they claim to be, the very principle of patenting and withholding from general use a beneficent invention for the saving of human life would be a shameful confession of selfish greed. The liquor traffic presents a striking case of a huge industry inducing people to buy what harms them. It is militant capitalism rotting human lives and characters to distill dividends. In the atrocities on the Congo, we have the same capitalism doing its pitiless work in a safe and distant corner of the world, on an inferior race and under the full support of the government. The rapacity of commerce has been the secret spring of most recent wars. Speculative finance is the axis on which international politics revolve. The counts in the indictment against our marvelous civilization could be multiplied at pleasure. It is a splendid sinner, magnificent in sin. The words which Bret Harte addressed to San Francisco in its earlier days characterize the whole of modern society. Quote, I know thy cunning and thy greed, thy hard, high lust and willful deed, and all thy glory loves to tell of specious gifts material. End of quote. It defrauds the customer who buys its goods. It drains and brutalizes the workman who does its work. It hunts the businessman with fear of failure or makes him hard with merciless success. It plays with the loaded dice of false prospectuses and watered stock. And the vaster its operations become, the more they do love the darkness rather than the light. It corrupts all that it touches, politics, education, the church. For a profession to be commercialized means to be demoralized. The only realms of life in which we are still glad and happy are those in which the laws of commerce are not practiced. If they entered the home, even that would be hell. Industry and commerce are good. They serve the needs of men. The men eminent in industry and commerce are good men with the fine qualities of human nature. But the organization of industry and commerce is such that along with its useful service, it carries death, physical and moral. Frederick Denison Maurice, one of the finest minds of England in the Victorian age, said, I do not see my way farther than this. Competition is put forth as the law of the universe. That is a lie. And his friend, Charles Kingsley, added, competition means death. Cooperation means life. Every joint stock company, trust, or labor union organized, every extension of government interference or government ownership is a surrender of the competitive principle and a halting step towards cooperation. Practical men take these steps because competition has proved itself suicidal to economic welfare. Christian men have a stouter reason for turning against it, because it slays human character and denies human brotherhood. If money dominates, the ideal cannot dominate. If we serve Mammon, we cannot serve the Christ. Put in a link to Martin Hengel's observations of property, land, and equality in ancient Israel.